Hello, and welcome to the Tanya Augusta Alchemy Community. I'm Tanya Augusta, your alchemy coach. Today, I want to talk to you about clear boundaries, and there are reasons why that we have a struggle with creating those boundaries. I am also going to be sharing in my next video with you on how to actually create boundaries, but I want to first talk a little bit about what gets in the way. Because as I have shared in previous videos, we have to have this awareness of what um, the issue is before we can make a shift. So I have found that there are 7 reasons why we struggle with boundaries. And the first reason is because of cultural conditioning, familial patterns, and these thoughts that and beliefs that we grow up with, right? Or we get in our first family, whoever that may be. So, a lot of times we can grow up with codependent families or with families that have and exhibit some of these behaviors. And these are ones in which one or more people are enabling somebody in the family to continue unhealthy patterns of being, whether that's a very irresponsible pattern of, not doing things that would help them to keep a job, whether that's, an addictive pattern using a substance. It could be other immature behavior, that reckless driving, something like that, that we don't really, talk to that person about, and maybe we somehow enable them. So this is a very common pattern. It happens in a lot of our families, in a lot of our upbringing. We aren't taught that, and so it's very important that we look at how we can shift these thoughts, and then, of course, the underlying beliefs that go along with that. So, the second reason that we struggle with creating these boundaries is that we haven't actually even learned how to set boundaries for ourselves. And this is something that as we begin adulting, we start to learn um, how to do that. But this could even be later in life that we are still learning how to do this. And um, I'm going to be talking again more about how to create healthy boundaries in my next video, Bravery Through Clear Boundaries. So please keep your eye out for that next one. But the third reason that we don't, that we struggle is that we don't know our authentic self. And there can be, again, a lot of programming from, could be family, could be religion, could be spirituality, just again, some of the culture that programs us into thinking that we need to be a certain way, and maybe we really don't fit into that box and that stereotype, and that, those things somehow, some of those parameters may infringe upon our authenticity and who we really are. So it's imperative that we really get to know ourselves, and so that we can then have that self-respect, and we can figure out our values that can really help along the way. The fourth thing that we need, or that we often struggle with, that we need to learn, is to understand our emotions and to feel them. So a lot of us don't know how to listen to our emotions or sit with them, and so when we don't understand our emotions, then obviously we are going to have a harder time creating healthy boundaries, or boundaries at all, right? Because we aren't even in touch with what it is that we're feeling, therefore we may not be in touch with what our needs are. And a lot of early trauma can create more numbness with our emotions if we had a lot of emotional trauma as children or young adults, or throughout all of our adulthood. So we can also distract ourselves. That could be a coping pattern that we have learned over time, and that many of us have to unlearn. So that could be just distracting with music constantly on, with TV, movies all the time, and going out, being with friends and socializing. It could be a sport, these events. It could be these after work activities. It can be work. I mean, anything can be a distraction. So it could be going to the gym. It could be something that appears more healthy, but if we are using that constantly and not looking at our emotions, then that's when it becomes a problem. So we really have to be in touch with our feelings and get clear on what they are and be okay with feeling, just sitting with those, you know, emotions that arise. It's going to be sadness sometimes, other times it will be our anger, other times, um, of course, we'll get to feel the joy as well. And those are the happy, joy, peace are much easier to feel and sit with, but we can learn all of those. The fifth reason that people struggle to gain clear boundaries is that we don't even realize that we have a right to our own space, to our own body, to our own spirit, to our own emotions, to our own time and energy, to our own privacy, to our spirit, our spirituality. All of these things we have a right to. And there are, again, stories in perhaps our upbringing, our culture, again, the religion that we grow up with that could be telling us otherwise. And so there is a process again of unlearning with some of these things, or to just become aware of, yeah, if I maybe when we grew up, we didn't have our own room, and so we always had to share it with a sibling. So we didn't realize later on that we do and are allowed a private space, and so that could be a boundary that we have to recognize and realize, wow, I need this. And maybe some people can handle a roommate or a family member coming into the room without asking, but it's imperative that other people are honoring that boundary of always knocking first and not entering unless they have been told, yes, you may come in, that sort of thing. The sixth reason that we struggle with boundaries is that that we haven't learned how to be assertive. This is quite a process for many of us. Again, something that many of us don't learn in childhood. It would be nice if we had more examples in our families, but we have to learn a lot of steps of how to speak in a way that can be received and that people will want to hear what we have to say, even if it can be a little bit uncomfortable. And even though there may be some initial tension and it's not always easy to bring to the table, but when we say things in a way that is loving and that is using observation and some of those non-violent communication skills, I call them conscious communication skills, we can do much better. So of course, often we don't want to sound pushy, we don't want to sound confrontational, and people don't want to be confronted often, right? So if we don't want to be confronted, we may be more likely to be passive as well. But then to get our needs met, we may be saying things and being passive aggressive, and obviously that's not going to go very well. I mean, maybe it's something that's worked for some time, but at some point you're going to make a friend and they're not going to appreciate it, and they're going to probably draw a clear boundary that they're not going to accept somebody who's going to do passive aggressive behavior to you. So or allow that to happen to them. And so therefore, it's an opportunity for each of us to grow when we have people that create boundaries in our life. So yeah, really, this is all about self-love, and it is a beautiful thing. The seventh reason that people struggle to have clear boundaries is that they confuse love with fear. And so there's a love to fear spectrum that I teach in my coaching. And so sometimes there can be a confusion of somebody, operating out of fear that's disguised as love. So they could be saying something and doing something that's kind of really manipulative. And again, maybe they mean well because they essentially are probably trying to get their needs met. They could even be, an extreme example would be being pushy about asking for sex. And you're like, I'm not feeling like it tonight. Maybe it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife. You could even have, this long-term relationship, but you may not feel like having sex that evening. And they might be wanting that. And, you have a right to say, I don't feel like it, no matter what your relationship is, right? But of course, some of us who have been in these roles have felt like if I am the husband, if I am the wife, then I must, or if I'm the girlfriend, if I'm the boyfriend, then I must perform a certain way and I don't really have a right to say no. Maybe we also feel like there's this trade off and we may be scared if I say no, then what will they do to me? Will they kick me out? And then, what if I can't get my needs met? What if I don't have a roof over my house anymore? These are all things that we can experience, that we, can have fears about, and that we need to be aware of, that people can manipulate. And we're all on this path of trying to be more in love and away from fear. But, we are always on this spectrum and we fluctuate. And of course, we always want to be the most loving and compassionate person and being. And that's, what most of us are always striving to be. And, most of us feel terrible when we fall anything short of that. But it is part of that human condition and our conditioning that we are learning and unlearning. Well, thank you for listening. I appreciate your likes, your subscribes. I appreciate you sharing this video with your friends and your family. This is such an important message that we can really take to heart, because it's going to, as we heal these patterns of thoughts and behaviors, we heal our physical body. And as somebody who's also practiced Chinese medicine for many years and done body work and acupressure, I have a lot of clients that have come to me with very severe illness, a lot of autoimmune conditions, and other chronic conditions that have built up over time. And that's one of the reasons that I became an alchemy coach, was that I could see that the underlying issues, just like many of mine, initially were from not being assertive and from not being able to speak up and speak my mind and have these clear boundaries. So I really hope that this has helped you. I look forward to sharing with you my bravery through clear boundaries, and we can learn how to create boundaries in a safe, healthy, and productive manner. Have a wonderful week.